I'm a 32-year-old guy, just an average guy who works a 9 to 5 and spends his weekends watching football with friends. I met my fiancée, let's call her F, 3 years ago through a mutual friend. Things moved fast. We clicked in a way that felt easy, natural. By year 2, I proposed. She said yes, and we started planning the wedding. I thought we had a good relationship, built on trust and mutual respect. That's why what happened shook me to my core. The whole thing started with the ring. I'm not a flashy guy, but the ring I chose for her was deeply personal. My grandmother left me a diamond that had been in the family for generations. She made me promise to use it for something special. I designed a custom engagement ring with a local jeweler, incorporating the diamond and a band engraved with a pattern that matched a bracelet my grandmother always wore. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't about the money. That ring symbolized family, history, and love. F adored it, or so I thought. About a month before the wedding, I noticed F acting off. She started making little comments about the ring, like how she'd seen something similar but shinier in a magazine. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then she outright suggested I get the diamond repolished because it looked a bit old. That rubbed me the wrong way, but I brushed it off. She'd been stressed with wedding planning, and I figured she just wanted everything to be perfect. Then, one evening, she came home from a supposed girls' outing with her friends, practically glowing with excitement. She handed me a glossy brochure for a high-end jewelry store and pointed out a ring, a generic, flashy piece that had none of the charm or meaning of the custom one I'd given her. "This," she said, "is what I've been dreaming of. Don't you think it's more elegant?" I froze. "What do you mean? You already have a ring. The one we designed together." She rolled her eyes. "I'm just saying, maybe it's time for an upgrade. That one feels so old-fashioned. This is what modern brides wear." That conversation turned into a heated argument. I reminded her that the ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it was a family heirloom. She tried to guilt-trip me, claiming I was being cheap and unwilling to invest in our future. It felt like a slap in the face. I'd poured my heart into that ring, and she was treating it like a placeholder for something shinier. A few days later, I noticed something strange. The ring was missing from her jewelry box. When I asked about it, she shrugged and said she'd taken it for cleaning. My gut told me something was off, so I decided to dig. I called the jeweler where we'd had the ring made. Sure enough, they hadn't seen or heard from F. That's when I started to panic. The next day, I went through her phone while she was in the shower. I know, it's not my proudest moment, but I needed answers. What I found made my blood boil. There were texts between her and a friend discussing how she'd pawned the custom ring and used the money as a down payment on the flashy ring from the brochure. "She won't even notice the difference," one text read. "I just have to keep him distracted until it's done." I confronted her that same night. She didn't even try to deny it at first, just acted offended that I'd gone through her phone. "You had no right." "No right," I interrupted. "You sold my grandmother's diamond." "My grandmother's diamond, F. You lied to me and you sold it. Do you have any idea what that means to me? To my family?" She folded her arms, looking defiant. "It's just a rock, okay? I wanted something better, something that matches who I am. Why can't you understand that?" I couldn't even look at her. The entitlement, the sheer audacity, was staggering. I told her I was done, that the wedding was off. She laughed, like she didn't believe me. "You're overreacting," she said. "Do you know how embarrassing this will be for me? For us? You can't just call off the wedding because of a ring." But I did. The next day, I contacted the venue, the vendors, and everyone else involved. I made it clear the wedding was canceled. What I didn't expect was how far she'd go to make my life hell afterward. The fallout was immediate. F told everyone in our social circle that I was a control freak who lost his mind over a piece of jewelry. Her family called me, berating me for humiliating their daughter. My own parents were shocked but supported me when I explained what had happened. Then came the legal threats. F demanded I reimburse her for wedding expenses since I'd unilaterally called it off. Her lawyer sent me a letter claiming I owed her for emotional damages and breach of contract. It was absurd, but I took it seriously. I hired my own attorney, who assured me that her claims were baseless. Meanwhile, I was working on my own plan. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done. I went back to the pawn shop, hoping against hope that my grandmother's diamond hadn't been sold yet. Miraculously, it was still there. The pawn shop owner, sympathetic to my story, agreed to hold it for me while I sorted things out legally. My attorney helped me draft a demand letter, insisting F either return the money she'd gotten from pawning the ring or face a lawsuit for theft. At first, she ignored it, assuming I wouldn't follow through. But when she realized I was serious, she panicked. Her response? More manipulation. She tried to paint herself as the victim, telling mutual friends I was ruining her life over a misunderstanding. But I wasn't backing down. I filed a police report for theft. It wasn't an easy decision, but the ring was irreplaceable, and she needed to face the consequences. Once she realized how serious the situation was, she caved. She returned the money, but by then, the damage was done. The icing on the cake came when I exposed her lies publicly. I posted a detailed account of what had happened, complete with screenshots of her texts, on social media. I didn't name names, but the people close to us knew exactly who it was about. The post went viral within our circle, and the backlash against F was swift. Her carefully curated image of a sweet, loving fiancé crumbled overnight. Friends who had once sided with her cut ties. Her family, embarrassed by the public humiliation, stopped defending her. As for me, I got the diamond back and had it reset into a simple pendant. It's not the ending I'd envisioned, but it's a reminder of what I value: honesty, integrity, and self-respect. So yeah, I lost a fiancé, but I dodged a bullet. And if you're ever in a relationship where someone tries to manipulate you into compromising your values, walk away. It's not worth it. The weeks that followed were both liberating and surreal. Once the dust settled, I began to process everything. It wasn't just about the ring, it was about trust. How could someone I'd planned to spend the rest of my life with think so little of me, of my family, of our shared future? But even as I moved forward, F wasn't done. Her entitlement, it turned out, ran deeper than I'd imagined. About a month after I canceled the wedding, I got a call from the venue. They wanted to confirm whether I still intended to pay the remaining balance. Confused, I explained that the wedding had been canceled weeks ago. That's when the venue coordinator dropped a bombshell. F had called them after I'd canceled, claiming there had been a mix-up. She'd rescheduled the wedding without my knowledge. I couldn't believe it. She had not only tried to save face but had also attempted to push forward with a wedding I wasn't even attending. I asked the coordinator to send me any documentation related to this rescheduling. Sure enough, there were signed contracts, fake ones, with my name forged at the bottom. I immediately forwarded everything to my attorney, who contacted F's lawyer. This time, there was no negotiation. F's actions had crossed into serious legal territory. Forgery, fraud, attempted theft. It was a mess of her own making. My lawyer filed a civil suit, and I considered pressing criminal charges, though I eventually decided against it to avoid dragging the whole thing out even further. Still, the legal process was a wake-up call for F. When faced with the possibility of actual jail time, she finally backed off. She withdrew all her claims, returned what little money she had taken from our joint savings account, and agreed to a settlement that ensured she'd never contact me again. I thought that would be the end of it, but the ripple effects kept coming. About 6 months later, I ran into one of F's former bridesmaids, who distanced herself from F after the wedding debacle. She filled me in on what had happened to F after everything blew up. Apparently, F had tried to move on quickly, dating a guy who, according to her, was more generous than I had been. That relationship didn't last long. Turns out he caught on to her manipulative ways even faster than I had. Word had spread about what she'd done with the ring, and her reputation was in tatters. People who used to idolize her saw her for what she really was. She lost friends, job opportunities, and, from what I heard, even had to move out of her apartment because she couldn't afford the rent on her own. Part of me felt sorry for her. She had sabotaged her own life with her greed and entitlement. But another part of me felt a grim sense of justice. Actions have consequences, and she was finally facing hers. As for me, life has been surprisingly good. Breaking off the engagement was the hardest decision I've ever made, but it was also the best one. I've started dating again, though cautiously this time. I'm not in a rush to settle down. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that trust and mutual respect are non-negotiable. The pendant I had made for my grandmother's diamond now hangs on a chain in my bedroom. Every time I see it, I'm reminded of the importance of standing up for myself and my values. So to anyone reading this, don't let anyone, partner, friend, or family, make you compromise who you are or what you stand for. Sometimes, walking away is the strongest move you can make. And seriously, if you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button. It's free, unlike the cost of getting your dignity back after someone tries to pawn your grandmother's diamond.